Hi, everybody. This is the Gospel of John on Monday with Jesus.
All right. Okay, hi, I'm Amelia.
I'm Tom.
Right, okay. So the story this week is, I think it's technically, it's called the high priestly prayer, right? Jesus is praying, I guess, for his disciples. So we'll listen to the story and then Tom will explain everything about it afterwards, right, Tom?
Right.
Okay, all right. Tell us the, it's not really a
This is the
story.
middle. This is the middle of the prayer.
Okay.
So it's kind of the heart of it. Said, I have made your name known to those who gave me from the world. They were yours, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. Now they know that everything you have given me has come from you. For the words that you have given me, I have given to them. And they have received them and know in truth that I came from you and have believed that you sent me. I am not asking. I'm asking for them. I'm not asking for the sake, but I'm asking for their sake, that they may be one. So they are yours. All mine are yours, and yours are mine. And I have been sanctified in them. And now I am no longer in the world, but they are in the world. Holy Father, protect them in your name that you have given me, that they may be one, as we are one. While I was in the world, I protected them in the name that you have given me. And not one of them was lost, except the one who was destined to be lost, that the scriptures might be fulfilled. And now I am coming to you, and they are in the world. I've spoken these words in the world, that my joy may be made complete in themselves. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. I'm not asking you to take them out of the world, but I am asking you to protect them from the evil one. They do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. Sanctify them in truth. Your word is truth. And just as you have sent me into the world, so I send them into the world. And for their sakes, I sanctify myself, so that they may be sanctified.
Thank you, Tom. I think we missed the very last word. Our internet connection is not terribly stable. Can you just repeat the last line for us, so that they may be sanctified? Something more there?
Yeah. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth.
Okay.
Just as you sent me to the world, so I send them into the world.
Okay.
Sanctify them in truth. For their sakes, I sanctify myself, so that they may be sanctified in truth.
Great. Thank you. Didn't want to lose that last word. It's sanctified in truth. That's beautiful. But so just tell us a little bit about the context, just briefly. What's the context of this scripture? What's going on here?
Yeah. Well, this is the conclusion of Jesus' last conversation with the disciples. And in John, it's a meal. It's not a Passover. It's a regular meal where he washed their feet and then talked to them. In John, this speech from 13 through 17 is the longest address of the gospel tradition. And it comes at the end of a whole series of stories. Basically, Jesus does not talk to the disciples until this time. There's a short conversation at the end of chapter 6, the bread discourse. But other than that, this is the time when the listeners are invited to identify with the disciples and to hear Jesus speaking directly to them.
Okay.
So this is a word that is directly addressed to the listeners as now disciples.
Okay.
And so they're invited to occupy that place, that relationship.
Okay.
That and is an intimate relationship that grows out of the intimacy between Jesus and Father, and so it is extended then to the disciples. But that's the spirit of this. It's a spirit of intimacy, of love, of unity, that they may be one.
Right. Jesus talks a lot about the world in this passage, a little bit reminiscent of, everybody's best known verse, God so loved the world that God sent God's only son. What is all the stuff about the world in this passage here?
Yeah, well, this reflection of what was happening in the world at the end of the first century. It was during the reign of Domitian, who was one of, if not the worst, of the emperors of Rome. He was a kind of madman who did a whole series of bizarre things. So the Roman world was, the world.
Okay.
So also was the conflict that had developed in the community of Israel over Jesus in the aftermath of the war. And so this, there was a significant conflict. There was persecution. There were people being killed, both by Jews and by Romans. And they were all members of the community of Israel. But this term, the world, is a description of a power, of a kind of cosmic power in the world. Roman Empire, communities of controversy. So Jesus addresses this and to the disciples as an invitation to not belong to the world,
Okay.
but to belong to God.
Right. Another thing that he talks about a lot. He uses this phrase, your name. He talks about your name.
Right.
Why is that so important?
Well, the divine name was holy in the tradition of Israel, and the name had power. And so to be introduced to the name of God was to be introduced to the reality of God. And so the name was a kind of symbol. It was also, as you probably know, but the Israelites did not pronounce the divine name.
It didn't what?
They did not pronounce, they did not say the name.
Right.
In order to preserve its holiness.
Mm-hmm.
So the Tetragrammaton that is translated Yahweh, they did not say.
Mm-hmm.
They said Adonai or other names for God. So this was an introduction to the name, but it was also that Jesus was who made the name known and was also called holy,
Right.
called by the name. So it is a word of power,
Right.
divine power,
Yeah.
and revelation.
Yeah, that kind of makes me think of Genesis, where I guess God gives Adam the power to name the other creatures.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Now, so it's Jesus speaking, and Jesus is speaking to God, whom he calls a Holy Father at one point, and he's
Right.
and he's speaking about, well, the world, I guess, but also about some people, some actual people. Is
Right.
that, and I assume that's the disciples, or is he talking about us? I mean, you kind of talked about this, I think, in your introduction, but just clarify that again, who he's speaking about.
Well, there are kind of, I don't know, 3 levels to this. One level is that this is presented as a discourse, a word that Jesus gave to the disciples in 33 AD as the last thing that he said to the disciples. So these are effectively his last words. Then there was the experience that was happening at the end of the first century as the community was formed, was present in the community as a spirit who was alive and present and speaking to them. And so this word was also known then. But it's also that this word is spoken by anyone who tells Jesus' story. And the listeners then are as disciples in those tellings of these words of Jesus. It's an extraordinary thing, this prayer.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's really striking.
Yeah.
Jesus praying for us, praying for me, praying for those who have taken his name.
Right. Yeah. Committed them. Yeah. There's kind of a sad note in there, though. He mentions
The one who was
lost.
Yeah.
It's just sad. I mean, that's a reference to Judas. He doesn't even name him, right?
That's right.
What do you make of that or think about that? I mean,
well, it was one of the great puzzles of experience that one of the disciples would betray him, hand him over. And my own opinion is that that this was related to the nationalist revolutionary movement, and that that the implication is that Judas was looking for one who would recruit an army and deliver Israel from the Gentiles.
And that
Jesus
was what, right.
arrest,
Yeah.
and he was scandalized by that.
Yeah.
And by his accepting in Mark that he accepted being anointed by this woman who poured this rich ointment over his head, and that reflected an overall question of what did faithfulness to God mean. And for the zealot community, it meant having nothing to do, not paying any taxes, not being zealous for the Lord, and that meant being willing to fight.
Right. Yeah. And kill their enemies. Right.
Right.
Okay. Now, another thing Jesus says, he talks about the words that you gave me that I have given to them. That is, I guess, the disciples then. The words that you gave me that I have given to them. Do we have any sense of what these words were?
Well, in the gospel, the words that Jesus has spoken. And the implication is that God gave Jesus these words to speak. But it is also, in particular, the words that are spoken here. So that these words are experienced as words that came from God. And that in turn reflects the character of Jesus' words throughout the gospel, that they were experienced as words from God, that God gave him and that he then gave to others.
Right. So. Another thing that's kind of, well, it's sad in retrospect, is that Jesus says, you've given me these so that they may all be one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I assume he's talking, and it's sad from my perspective because Christians clearly have not all been one. I mean, we have this horrible history in Europe of Christians killing each other, and now you and I we're United Methodists, and our denomination is splitting up. So you want to talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah. Well, it is, first of all, an ongoing. It is an ongoing prayer that is still, I don't know, being prayed by Jesus, by the Spirit of Jesus, that they may be one. And it's interesting in this that it is presented in this as a note of protection. Holy Father, protect them in your name that you have given me, so that they may be one, just as we are one. So the implication is that one is a protection. It is a source of power. It is a source of being protected. And that the division of the church is to eliminate that primary source of protection from the powers of the world. And it has been that. The division has created, in many ways, opportunities for the governments of the world to use those divisions to attack, to kill, And so it is, it's one of the great, in my view, it's one of the great tragedies of Christian history is these toxic divisions that have emerged. First of all, the division between the followers of Jesus and the tradition of Israel. The split between Jews and Christians has been a sort of enormous pain over the centuries, and the deaths of millions of people. So this prayer is really a prayer that has so much resonance, and is a prayer that, in my opinion, that we need to be praying all the time, that we may be one.
Well, thank you, Tom, for helping us understand this this powerful prayer Jesus prayed for all of us.
Yeah, well, it ends with this prayer of for sanctification, sanctify them. The word is hagios in Greek. It means holy, pure. So the prayer is that that we may be sanctified, and that Jesus was making himself holy so that we might be sanctified in the truth. So that would be a wish, is that we might experience that kind of sanctification. So it's what Wesley was talking about in relation to perfection, that we might grow in that. So that would be my wish this week, that we would all grow in sanctity, in the truth.
Yeah. And maybe if we meditate on this scripture, that would be a means to do so.
Yep.
Yep. All right. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a good week.
Okay. Have a great week, everyone.
God bless you.
Love you.